Welcome to the 22nd edition of Dialogue with the Experts. In the series of Dialogue with the Experts, we always invite eminent personalities to discuss about the various interesting domains. Today, we have with us Mr. Satyamurthy, retired Deputy Controller and Auditor General of India and Chair Audit Board of India. Many people may not be knowing what is the role of Auditor General, that is Controller and Auditor General. We have seen a AGS office in every state capitals and the government is getting audited. Very mammoth operation. And how the auditing is being done, what do they do with their audit report, how it is getting processed. Mr. Satyamurthy has got nearly 40 years of experience in the CAG office. He is IEA and AS officer, and he has worked in the foreign assignments also in the auditing. He is one of the eminent auditors of this country. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Satyamurthy, for joining our show. We are greatly honored with your presence. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivas.
Sir, what exactly the role of CAG? Who is CAG? Is he a constitutional authority, or to whom he is reporting, or who is appointing it? And you also said that you are the chair for audit board. What is an audit board? That is what the role of an audit board and the CAG. Can you just in the process we'll discuss about the various roles of CAG.
Yes. The President of India appoints the Auditor General, and the reports of the Auditor General goes to the President of India. From the President of India, it goes to Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance arranges to place it on the table of the House through the Speaker. Same is the process in the states also. Now, you had asked me a question. Who is the Auditor General? One, he is a constitutional authority. Yes. Secondly, you can take it as he is a legislative auditor. He is a legislative auditor in the sense he is the person whose reports are sought after by the legislators in the country, be it the Parliament or the Assembly. Because ultimately, it is in a democracy, it is the Parliament which controls expenditure and revenue. They vote. Yesterday we had the new tax thing. This will be voted when it becomes an act. Then it is the legislators who have approved it. Similarly, expenditure is also approved by the legislature for the various things, whether it is health or education or agriculture, whatever be it. So the legislators want to know whether the ministries, departments, and authorities, various authorities are also there. Let's say Port Trust is not a department, it's an authority. So all these people have collected what is due to the public exchequer, and they have spent it according to the decisions of the Parliament or the state legislature. So this is the thing. You asked me another question. What is the Chair Audit Board? And Chair of the Audit Board is also Deputy Controller and Auditor General. It's a separate post, and he works under the Auditor General. Ultimately, there is only one authority, Auditor General of India. So the Chair of the Audit Board deals with all the public sector undertakings. There are ever so many state and central undertakings. We want to know, they have several items which belong to the public domain. For example, land, or how much they should collect by way of tax, whatever it is. So they also owe an answer to the citizens of this country, and whether they have not misused the money in their personal favor, and they have benefited the country and the citizens of this country. Unlike the departments and ministries which are audited by the departmental people, the Public Undertakings Committee, the public undertakings are initially audited because they are commercial in nature. So they are audited by the chartered accountants, and then they send their reports to the CAG, who vets them. And if there is any problem in what they have done, either it is corrected or it is included in the annual report of the undertaking. This goes to the shareholders of the company. So this is the difference between chair of the audit board and Deputy Controller Auditor General of India. Deputy Controller Auditor General does ministries, departments, and authorities. The public undertakings, they are audited initially audited in a detailed way by the chartered accountants, and it is coordinated and sort of browsed through by the controller of the website. All the reports of the ministries and all, they go to the Public Accounts Committee. The reports of the companies which are in commercial nature, they go to another committee called Public Undertakings Committee. Both of them go through the findings of the CAG, recommendations of the CAG, and then they have a second look and recommend it to the ministries or the public undertakings to either to correct or to collect or to amend. So whatever corrective action is to be taken and reported back to the respective company.
Sir, you said that public sector undertakings. In that case, why the banks are not getting audited by CAG? They are also public sector undertakings.
They are also public sector undertakings, but you see, essentially you cannot lay down what should be the extent of risk that should be taken in all cases or in every case. They are also development oriented. In development oriented, you cannot have, I have myself been in a development authority before, where the return for the money is not important, but the benefit for the people is more important. The benefit for the people may not be immediate. It may be over a period of time. For example, if you construct an airport or if you construct a port, seaport, then it may take 5 years, 10 years for the trade to pick up. These are development. There may be no immediate. That is why banks, whatever they do, they have to take much more risk than a department.
So what is the difference between a chartered accountant auditing and your auditor general, your officers like you, the internal officers like you, auditing the government ministries or departments, state government or central government?
Very good question, Mr. Singh. In fact, I wanted to tell you earlier when you introduced me. I am called a public auditor. The chartered accountants are private sector auditors. In public sector, audits are different and much more detailed. You see, in a private sector, in a company, everything is decided with the management. To some extent, the shareholders. In the case of a department, everything is decided by the government. To a small extent by the people. These are the rules of the game. And we look, for us, the integrity is much more important than profit.
Recently, we have seen CAG's name always in the limelight, like 2G scam and so many coal scam and other things. Then how do you detect the scam? A lot of scams were detected by CAG in the past few years. How do you detect the scam?
The important advantage which the CAG enjoys, or the public sector auditor enjoys, is access to records. Because he sees the original records and then makes his conclusions, his analysis. That is why it is totally dependent. It is supported by total proof, evidence, which may not be the case, which is not possible in a private sector audit. We can do audit in a very detailed manner, and also nowadays with more and more technological aids, for example, data analytics, will enable millions of vouchers to be scanned. Whereas in a private sector audit, it is much more test audit.
Sir, how
So,
yes, sir, proceed, sir. Proceed.
so when you say the scam, what happens is whatever is said about 2G or about phone, whatever is said there is supported by documents, which can be produced even in a court of law. That is why after the CAG goes through something, even in court stand, the matter goes to the court. CAG does not punish anyone. He only reports to the parliament the money has been misspent. Whereas the courts decide what should be the punishment and what should be the final decision or establishment of criminality.
Sir, how do you compare Indian type of auditing, CAG auditing, with international auditing, government's auditing, like US, European countries? You have worked in international arena also.
Actually, even now I'm working.
Oh,
And first I'll finish with that.
great.
Post-retirement, I worked with the Auditor General of Afghanistan, Auditor General of Iraq, Auditor General of South Sudan, Auditor General of Palestine, Auditor General of Bangladesh, etc. So I worked with them for 2-3 years as advisor. This is number one on the international side. You asked me a question, how does it compare? Basically, there is something called audit mandate or audit law. How strong it is, what is the scope of the mandate, determines the extent to which the public sector can be audited. In some countries, NGOs can be audited by the auditor. In some countries, banks can be audited by the auditor. Now, secondly, for example, in Korea, there are powers of seizure. So you go there, you find something wrong, you can, like a customs authority, you can go and seize the thing. You can also impose fines in some cases. Broadly, there are two types of auditors. One is, there are actually three types, you can say. One in the creation, one that is dependent upon ministry, for example, Ministry of Finance. One that is dependent upon judiciary, where they are more inclined towards the judicial functions of the CAG. So these are the, and on the whole, the third one could be the more towards the parliament. So that which is aligned to the speaker, because ultimately the report goes to the legislature. So whether it is finance ministry or the Supreme Court model or the legislative model, depends upon the creation. Broadly speaking, there are only two types. One is the French type, or the court of appeal, where the authorities are summoned and asked to give on oath their response. The second one is the Westminster model, which most of the British colony countries have adopted. We have adopted the Westminster model. You asked me one more question in your question. How are this internationally? There is something called INTOSAI, International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. CAG is called Supreme Audit Institutions, CAG. So they try to even out the differences so that the reports can be compared, performances can be compared, and the streams of audit, techniques of audit can be unified. So International Organization for Supreme Audit Institutions tries to make the functions coherent. So that is where it gives the rules of the game.
So what is the structure of the office? That is, the CAG is the topmost, then the deputy CAG, and at the every state level you have officers. What is the structure?
Yes. You see, there is a central government structure and the state government structure. For the state governments, there are accountants. Now, in the state government, there are again two wings. One is for compiling the accounts, because I think there will be millions of transactions in a year for every state government. Then within that, there will be for departments. Within that, so it will go down up to the Tahsil level or even to the village level. And there are different kinds of departments. There are different kinds of institutions, commercial institutions. So this is for accounts alone, there is a separate authority. Auditing is not compiling. Auditing is analyzing the transactions. One, there are 6 types of audit. So there is an auditor, accounting general audit in each state also. The same structure continues for central side also. There will be one person, one authority for compiling the accounts. There is another authority to audit. They can audit with reference to ministries or with reference to departments or with reference to commercial nature of the transaction. So this is the structure. There is deputy auditor general, then there is additional deputy auditor general, then there are principal directors of audit on the central side. On the state side, it is accountant general, then functionaries below. These are the hierarchy.
But at the taluk level and block level and village level also the accounts are there. And is the Auditor General of the states, are they auditing those accounts even at the block level or village level?
Well, public money is spent even at the school level, police station level. Now, what they do is, it is not possible to audit. There may be, let us say, 100,000 units in a state like Tamil Nadu. So there is something called test audit. So sample audit. So and then there is something called audit cycle. You don't audit them every year. You audit. There is some schools are called aided schools and non-aided schools. So these differentiations are made. Sample audit is done, and not 100%. It's not possible to see the vouchers for every transaction, and it's not necessary. And I told you earlier, there are 6 streams of audit. There's something called compliance audit. So comply with the rules and regulations. In the British time, it was called inspection. So you are only seeing the rules are obeyed. But such an audit is not enough today because governance has become very complex. For example, it is not enough if the rules are followed for combating COVID. You may have to take so many other decisions to make it effective. Effective today, effective audit, effective expenditure is more important than complied expenditure. Results are more important than regularity. As Mr. Vittal used to say, you should not only do things right, you must also do the right thing. So doing right is important, but right thing is much more. So we do what is the latest is called performance audit. That is the modern audit today. Apart from information technology aided audit, which is also another important thing. There is also something called disaster management audit. There is something called waste management audit. And then there is something called environment audit. These are all new types of audits. It's not enough to follow the rules. Much more than the rules, results should be given.
In India, the CME is following the modern type of auditing now. Are we ready with the latest trends in auditing?
Yes. In fact, INTOSAI pushes most of the auditors general towards these new types of audit, performance audit. Because it is a performance audit which benefits the common man. The money is spent and no results are accrued. Suppose schools are constructed that are in a place where there are no children. It is compliance. You follow all the rules, how to get timber, bricks, build a school, appoint a teacher, but there are no students in that school. It's not effective expenditure. So INTOSAI pushes them towards performance audit. We have been doing performance audit for that. Actually, even before the international countries started, we started doing. We have done environment audit. For example, when there was floods in Madras. Now, how the flood was foreseen, what was the expenditure, whether it protected the people, these things have been reported by the local accountant general to the Tamil Nadu legislature. So we are doing, and then as far as climate is concerned, climate audit, this is the one, India is one of the leading countries in that field. There is also, apart from expenditure, we have been talking about expenditure, there's also something called revenue. Now, whether income tax is collected properly. Now, if somebody is, the income tax officer cannot, let us say, give 1 lakh remission to Satyam. Why is it given to him? When 50,000 is due from him, why only 20,000 was collected? Whether the Companies Act has been correctly interpreted, Income Tax Act has been correctly interpreted, whether SEBI instructions have been followed, all these things are seen in revenue. So we also see collection under revenue, different types of revenue. Nowadays, GST. So whether GST is collected properly. So this is also seen by the control officer.
You mentioned that the auditing is done based on certain laws and even the acts and the rules of GST and other things. How much of the CAG, Office of CAG provides the knowledge or training to all the auditors, right from senior level to the ground level officers?
Yes. Capacity in every Supreme Audit institution, you can say 25% of the time and money will be spent on capacity building. There are different types of capacity building, as you told, from different layers. There is also vertical. You see, you may have to build teams for performance audit of, let's say, hospital, say, general hospital. So this is not merely one rung. This is a vertical groups will be, right? So every state has got regional training institute. We are recognized as one of the good trainers in the world. So we also have an international school for training in Delhi. So it is called ICISA. And nearly 75 countries send their people for training to ICISA in New Delhi, in Gurgaon. So we spend a lot of money right from the stage of recruitment. There are departmental exams. Then for revenue audit, there are revenue audit examinations. For public works, there are public works examinations. Then there are courses. But then it's not only classroom lectures. There are also panel discussions. There are also other types of training, even on the online training that has to be introduced, so that it's much more economical and more people can be trained. And we don't have, that is video conference, right, for 1 day training. So all types of training, there is a mix and match, so that we cover most of the people. There are people who are laterally entering at a higher level, not from clerical level. So for them, there is a separate training. For IAS officers like me, who first go, all the service, IAS, IPS, everybody is trained for 3-4 months. Then each service has got its own training school. For IAS, the training school is in Shimla. For income tax, it is in Nagpur. So like that, for railways, it is in Baroda. So for police, it is in Hyderabad. So for different services, there are separate, dedicated training academies.
There are certain many multinational organizations are availing the free power, free land, or from the state governments, because government of India is encouraging a lot of foreign investments. We are also giving a lot of concessions to them. Is the CAG go and goes there and then audit to what extent they have fulfilled their promise to the Indian government or to the state governments when they avoid all this power supply or lands and other things, or low cost lease and other things? We have been giving a lot of concessions on taxpayers' money.
All right, one of the leading hospital chains in the country, it was given free land. let's say in New Delhi. And they had promised 30% of the beds would be reserved for economically weaker patients. CAG audits them, maybe once in 5 years to see how many people were from economically weaker section, how many beds were given. This is one way of looking. Similarly, hotels are also given land, and the Delhi government has given. Let's say. And then how much money is due and how. I should say, even minerals, they belong to the people. They don't belong to any government or any company. There's a concession given for, let's say, hydrocarbons to be extracted. Now, that how much hydrocarbon has been extracted, how much of it has been sold, how much of money is due to the government, this is also audited. In fact, one of the private companies, leading private companies, objected to CAG's audit and said it has already been audited by the private sector auditor. Now, CAG cannot audit. The case went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court decided wherever a public resource has been used by a private sector, CAG has the right to audit. Because we are citizens auditor in that sense. We are the legislative auditor, helping the legislature to understand. So we are a constitutional auditor because we are appointed under the Constitution. Right? We are a federal auditor because we are a federation. Each state government is a separate entity. For example, how much GST is collected? Central government may not give the total money to the states. So the CAG issues a certificate. This much of GST was collected. This is all through the vouchers and documents. How much money was collected and the GST. How much money was collected? Because he is an impartial authority outside all government. So he is a federal auditor, he is a constitutional auditor, he is a legislative auditor, he is a citizens auditor, etc.
Sir, you have because you being a citizens auditor, the government of India provides, or state government provides, a lot of subsidies to various people. Even interest subsidy is being given. Whether the subsidy is being utilized by the beneficiary or by the intermediary or the organizations which are providing the subsidy, whether they are delivering the subsidy properly, are you auditing?
We can follow a public rupee, a public money, to the ultimate end. This is the brief. You can say wherever public money goes, the public auditor follows. So CAG can. Not only in the case of subsidies, we have fertilizer subsidy, education subsidy. We go after that. Right? Not only subsidies, pensions. The banks disperse. To what extent pensions have been dispersed correctly? Because there has been pension scam all over the country at different points of time, massive scale. Okay. Not only this, fee collection. Let's say passport fee collection. How has it been collected? How has it gone back? So if you take on the expenditure, including NGOs, if they get substantial money from the government, if it is more than 40%, let's say, of their budget, CAG can audit. So we cannot audit all the NGOs. But if the NGO is surviving on government money, public money, then CAG.
Sir, now that we have been doing a lot of auditing and then bringing into the knowledge of Public Accounts Committee or Public Sector Undertaking Committee, and if the CAG finds problems or frauds and other things, other than the court, suppose if it gets ignored by the political authorities, what would happen?
No. Let me think this way. We are a bipartisan country. Whenever we have, let us say, a mistake committed by the government, immediately the opposition will watch for its conclusion, take it to the conclusion. So to that extent, whatever CAG says is of more interest to the opposition. This is actually a problem because CAG is always perceived as someone who is helping the opposition. He's not helping the opposition, he's helping the citizen to get the value for his money. If it cannot be ignored, but there is something called Public Accounts Committee, as you said, which we discussed. Public Accounts Committee has a proportional representation. So, which means the ruling party will have little more people. So, they can shout down the opposition. Yet, there may be stalwarts in the opposition. They will take it forward. And generally, the leader is from the opposition. He will also take care of it. In between, sometimes, apart from Public Accounts Committee, the joint parliamentary committees are appointed. Okay, the bank scam or 2G scam or something. So, the joint parliamentary committee is also appointed to look into this as an interleaving in between PAC and Supreme Court. Right? Nowadays, Supreme Court can suo moto take up a case also. Nobody can ignore.
So you mean there is a checks and balances between the political dispensation as well as the auditing and the judicial. That is a checks and. Sir, now we have been receiving some questions also through social media or WhatsApp to our thing. I request Nandini to come on screen and then put out those questions. Nandini?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you?
Thank you. Audible, sir? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. Now, the first question that we have received from our audience: what are the most important code of ethics for the Comptroller and Auditor General of India?
The code of ethics for the Comptroller General of India is laid down by the INTOSAI, International Organization for Supreme Audit Institutions. So basically, one of the interesting things I would tell you, no, we should not audit something, we should not attempt to audit something unless we have the competence. So we should always, Comptroller General of India or his subordinate should always equip the people with right, competent people to audit. Number one. Number two, that before going for auditing, they should have a proper plan. 3, they should collect proper evidence. 4, they should look more for systems than individual aberrations. System correction is much more important than, let us say, finding fault with a single fellow. If somebody has made a mistake, that is not a great thing in terms of the country. System correction is much more important. Like this, there are several codes of ethics given. Most important is the man who goes to audit should be skilled enough and should possess knowledge.
All right. All right. Thank you. The next question is, what is the selection criteria for appointing CAG of India and who selects the person?
Very good. Now, when the CAG is about to retire, the man who is holding office, 3 months before, the file for appointing a new CAG emanates from the Ministry of Finance. Then it goes to the Prime Minister. Nobody is appointed. Then 3 names are chosen and this goes to a committee. Committee consists of Supreme Court, right, Chief Justice, opposition leader, the Prime Minister. Like this, there is a committee. This committee decides, Ministry of Finance, Minister for Finance. This committee decides amongst the 3 who should be chosen. This is the same for other constitutional authorities also. There are different committees for different disciplines also. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
1 minute. Is it the appointment is done by President of India?
Yes, the appointment. No. In fact, even every covenanted officer, every IAS officer, every IAS officer, every IPS officer is also appointed by the President. Right? The CAG is definitely appointed by India. Only thing is, he is administered an oath, just like the Supreme Court is given an oath. The judge is given by the President of
he cannot be removed, no? He cannot be removed from the office unless
Yes.
impeachment.
Yeah. No,
So,
basically, the security of service in every country, there is also an inter-SAI rule that unless you make the tenure secure, he cannot be independent. He should not be at the beck and call of the government or obliged to the government in any way. So actually, the inter-SAI regulations are even more strict than what is obtaining in India. He should be able to choose any topic he wants to audit. Nobody should tell him, don't audit this or don't audit that. So he has total technical independence. 2, he should have total administrative independence, which means he can appoint anybody, he can dismiss anybody, he should have total administrative independence. The third one is he should have total financial independence, in the sense that if he is starved of money and he is not allowed to do some audit, then it is not independent audit. So technical independence, administrative independence, financial independence are essentials for the independence of the CAG. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Now,
you.
when do you expect the next amendment to the DPC Act, that is the Duties, Powers and Conditions of Service Act, for the CAG of India, and for which clauses you think amendments may have to be made?
This is a little involved question. In the sense, I'm really surprised that you know about the DPC Act. DPC Act is the only one which governs his day-to-day functions, right? So the security of service, etc., are given elsewhere. DPC Act is under consideration for a while, okay, to expand its powers, to clarify its powers.
Yes.
But it has not yet passed through the stages of approval there with the government. So I cannot expect it has been there for a while.
Okay. Now, the next question is,
But before that, you tell me, how do you know about this DPC Act? You are well informed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In the expansion of DPC, do you know? It is duties, powers,
and conditions of service. Yes. Yeah. Now, the next question is, does the CAG of India audit all transactions related to elections and political campaigns? And if yes, then how?
No, we cannot audit all this. All the campaigns and all that, we don't audit. Because they are all by the political parties also. So political parties are outside the purview of the CAG. And generally, there is a mutual respect, some sort of, between different constitutional authorities. So how much do we audit the Supreme Court? How much do we audit the Election Commission? Right? These are slightly another constitutional authority, right? But they are audited. Even the judges are audited. Not on the technical side, on the administrative side. We do audit. Let's say, suppose the electronic voting machines are bought. How are they bought? At what price? How many were needed? How many were used? These things can be seen, right? Not beyond. I mean, the electoral rolls are printed. So, but electoral roll, whether it included all the voters, that is more with the Election Commission than with CAG.
Even Supreme Court also you are auditing, no?
Yes.
That is on the financial side only.
On the administrative side.
Administrative.
Okay, that's what, not merely financial side. Not on the, he has not delivered good judgments or 20 of his judgments have been overturned, that we vote on. That's not correct. So, I have myself gone and met, let's say, 3 or 4 chief justices in different courts. For example, in UP, in Calcutta, etc., where a judge might have misused his stature and status. So what we do, I go and tell them, see, this is a little difficult. So you do something internally to recover the money. So it has been recovered. So we all know what happened to one of the Supreme Court judges from Tamil Nadu itself. So these things do happen because we are all human beings. But at the same time, we don't want a public scandal to keep up the edifice, to keep up the dignity of judiciary or election commission.
Large number of
These
cases are pending.
institutions have to be built up for public respect, not for public distrust.
Sir, large number of cases are pending with various courts and other things. Is it getting into the purview of CAG? Because you said administration. Is there also an administration of justice? You need
No,
not go into-
we
you
will
need
not
go
comment
into
on
the
this.
judgment, huh?
That how many,
Hello?
pardon? No, cases are piling up. Whether the cases are piling up
Repeat, sir.
because of procedure,
Sir, repeat.
these are all we won't do.
Sir, repeat please, because it is not audible. Repeat please.
The Supreme Court decides how many judges are needed. The Law Ministry appoints Mallimath Committee. Repeat. So we won't decide how many judges are needed. Supreme Court judge is there for me. Supreme Court has to decide how many judges are needed in the High Court. High Court will decide how many people are needed in the District Court. Okay. So these are all well delimited areas of action. And if it is procedural, because of procedural delays, whether IPC has to be amended, there is a law commission which is continuously sitting, special committees like Mallimath Committee is appointed. So there are technical and competent people to decide these things much more than this.
Okay, thank you. Now the last question. When corruption is detected in the transactions that a CAG monitors, what are the necessary actions they take to tackle it on an immediate basis?
Levels of corruption. You see, we don't call everything corruption or scam. There are levels. So if it is a very small one, we write to who is to prevent the corruption, not CAG. It is a secretary to the ministry or secretary to the department or the collector of the district. It is his primary duty. My duty is secondary. To bring it to his notice, this has escaped your attention. Okay. So just like in a house, the primary duty is that of the husband to earn the money. The secondary, the primary duty of the lady to feed everybody in the house. Right. So there is a primary duty and the secondary duty. But if it is something very big, which people ought to know, then it has to come as in the audit. If it is a small one, we write to the state government, such as the collector, whoever it is, at different levels. We bring it to their notice, ask them to make correction. Suppose the staff car is lost and nobody bothers about it. Somebody has stolen it. So a police complaint should have been given. If even that is not given, it's an administrative failure. Like that, first we write, depending upon the scale of the corruption, scale of the mistake, scale of the error, scale of loss of money, either at the local level or at the state level or at the government level or at the political level. We take it to public accounts.
So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. And really, many people may not be knowing what are the roles of CAG, because he is one of the unsung heroes in the constitutional system. Because all your works are done behind the screen. Really, you have explained the role of CAG and other connected activities. Really, it will be of a great knowledge for all our viewers. Thank you very much for sparing your very, very valuable time. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. But did you see, he is a public auditor who cannot go to public. He has to remain in the shadows in this. Okay. So that is the nature of the job. So thank you very much.
CAG has to be given an unsung hero award also.
Yes, thank you. But anyway, people are taking notice. The CAG's image as well as role or as the efficacy will depend upon the growth of the democracy. in a very highly developed democracy, CAG will have strong voice. In fact, in UK, about 15 years back, CAG himself was removed because of public pressure. Okay. Now we see in different countries, presidents are punished. They go even to prison. There are prime ministers who are thrown out because that is the growth of, that depends on the evolution of democracy in a country. Anyway, thanks for giving me an opportunity. I enjoyed. In fact, I was surprised Nandini asked a question on DPC. It will remain on my mind. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.